Hey guys, and welcome to Eternal Mooncast. I'm your host, Michi.
Host Selene.
Welcome to the Mooney Show.
We've had a rough week.
We-
Okay. This episode's coming to you through sheer will. I feel it's a unique episode for us. It's much more an imaginative episode. We are going to be doing Building Your Own Moon Kingdom. We are going to be delving more into the fandom base than we usually do, than compared to using our factoids and then our opinions on those factoids. This is going to be how we see things, what we've built on our own, what we've seen other people build. And we all have a guest today.
Please introduce yourself, Erin.
I'm Erin, also known as Peach Bunny Princess, and I do a lot of cosplay. Been a longtime Sailor Moon fan for forever. I'm old. I've been a Sailor Moon fan since I've had to pre-record them on my VHS and then Mod Podge my very own cover. That's how long I've been a Sailor Moon fan. And then your weekend was set. You brought that VHS over to your friend's house and you watched your VCR that you don't have to take out of a time machine because it was the 90s. And it was the best. So, yeah, that's how long I've been a fan. And you can catch me doing a lot of fun stuff on TikTok.
Did your VCR remote have a cord, is what Beeble asks you.
No, I didn't have a VCR. Like, the remote didn't have a cord. I guess I wasn't that old. But we did have these giant remotes because we would lose them all the time, like the ones that old people have. It was enormous.
Of course, you would have one of those. I love those things. The ones from what was it, like Samsung or something?
Right. Yeah, they were huge. I think it's in my DeLorean in the garage right now, so I can go back in time and get my VCR whenever I need it.
Tonight, I think you were the one who brought up this topic, Erin, for Build Your Own Moon Kingdom. Yeah, and tell us, why is this your, number one subject?
Okay, so there's so many reasons, but I feel like a lot of people probably feel like me in that there could be a prequel. There's a lot of meatiness there. What happened on the moon? We've gotten snippets. We've gotten some people's side of the story, but we really didn't get the whole story. And we get a lot of fan fictions. We get a lot of fan art. And the artist herself has put some art in there to leave you guessing and hinting and thinking, I guess I know what happened. But I really think we don't know what happened. And so much has happened. There was so many stories there in that pre-Moon Kingdom. We know them as the good guys, but were they to everyone all the time? I feel like they kind of messed some people up and some other planets up too. We don't know any of the other planets' backstories. We don't know any of that. It was just like, hey, everybody lives on the Moon Kingdom and they're the best. And if you don't like them, kingdom and your planet's probably going to die. So I feel like it would be really interesting to know what happened in the before time. And then, of course, there's the after time. The timelines don't add up in the show too much. In the manga, sometimes it kind of keeps you guessing as well as, who is this? Now, who are you? You just popped up. Well, I'm from the future. Far in the future. What future? Dimension. How many Sailor Scouts are there? There's different universes. So I feel like there's just so much in the before time and the after time. And I feel like Star Wars doing the prequels, they could easily do so many prequels and so many sequels. And there's just so much meat there that they don't even cover in the show.
And I feel that the only other kingdom we really get even a glimpse is Venus's. So we see a little bit of Venus and that's about it. We kind of get a glimpse of the other, the castles, but they're freaking empty.
Yes.
There's nothing there.
Yeah.
Just the scouts. And I'm just like, what happened? Where is everybody? Is it just the princesses and that's it? Because that's not true for Venus. Because they mentioned, what's his face? I can't remember his name. Yeah. Him being like, hey, this is what happened. And you're like, what about everybody else?
Yeah.
And then I feel like Queen of Helenia also, that's interesting because
there's
as
so
I've
much
said
there.
and other things, was she the actual ruler before Queen Serenity showed up?
Was it like a Scar situation? And it's like,
Mhm.
nah, Simba was born. Get the hell out. You got a scar. We're going to call you that name from now on. Get out of here.
Which is so messed up.
It really
Or-
is.
Or maybe there was another kingdom and she was like, I don't like you being here. Things were established. We don't know because there's no story, and the only thing we know is something happened and she got sealed in a mirror.
Yeah.
There's so much we don't know. There clearly was a dark side of the moon. So I would love to see the prequel of the dark side of the moon. How did they become the dark side of the moon? We know they didn't like it, and that's about it. And we know that they tried their hardest to get out of it, and that didn't work out so well for them.
Yeah, because like just to bring it up, look at how dark even the light side of the moon kind of looks in the imagery in Crystal. Which I don't know. What do you guys to me? To me, I actually think Crystal did Moon Kingdom best. But where do you guys stand on who did the Silver Millennium best and what iteration?
I feel like Crystal has done an excellent take on it and has opened our eyes to it a little bit more and gave us more of a view. I feel like the original 90s cartoon gave us nothing. We got it could have been filmed in somebody's living room if it was actually filmed in the animated. Like they made the set in someone's living room because you saw nothing. You saw that there was gardens, there was ice skating, there was balconies, and that was about it.
We've got an image of like the actual castle being invaded by Beryl. I feel the 90s did it really, and then you have like her walking with her mom. The 90s really didn't go into the Moon Kingdom, which is so interesting because they do have in the manga, the Moon Kingdom is involved. And I think that was so interesting because there is we get a little bit more in the manga about it just because she does revive it and they're using the control stations there. But that's it. Like this, you get the ruins and stuff in the anime, but that gets fixed.
Yes.
And then we see it in the manga, but they don't really utilize it. And I think it's interesting when they talk about like Neo Queen Serenity, they say diddly squat about the Moon Kingdom. Like Chibiusa doesn't even mention the Moon Kingdom, and it's there, like it's together because they fixed it in the manga, like it got reborn.
Yeah.
And they're able to use it just like all the other kingdoms got put back together because they use it. We get nothing. That's almost like, oh, I put it there, it got revived, and now you're not going to get anything. Well, why? Why do we get nothing?
For my sanity, I've had to always explain it thusly in my own fan fiction little brain.
Mhm.
There are different timelines. The timeline we see, and let's combine them together, even though I know people are going to hate that and come for me in the comments. Let's combine Crystal and the 90s together, okay? Whatever. Manga, whatever. Let's combine them. That's one timeline. That's the timeline we're allowed to read, see, watch, enjoy. That's the timeline that's being shared. There were other timelines. There was other universes. There was other storylines. There were other versions of themselves. There was a past life. It's very past life, future life, and they all get to converge together and briefly here and there to help fix certain timelines because let's face it, the one that we watched is the best and she's awesome. So all the other timelines have to come to this one and be like, hey, we messed up. Hey, we messed up. Hey, we messed up. And you know what? Hey, that's all right. I got you because there's a little bit of my past here and there's a little bit of the future too. And that's like really the only way I can get through it as a fan is I always just tell myself, what was the Moon Kingdom of the past? That's the Moon Kingdom of a very distant future. I don't personally feel like they grew up and that was it. And that exact thing happened. 30th century Tokyo is here today. And there they are. And I feel like they're not exactly the same people they were. And they were sent back to Earth into tiny little rainbow crystals that got inserted into somebody's egg and uterus while they were having a good time on Earth or whatever. Now they're reborn. And that's science.
I love you.
And it's hard to understand science, but I tried.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, because what I wanted to do before we start talking our theories, our like fan fictions, all that good stuff, let's establish what is certain? Like, what are the parameters that we all agree have to exist within the Moon Kingdom or the Silver Millennium? Like, I think Queen Serenity is in charge.
Yes. She's in charge. And Damien's parents are in charge on Earth.
Yes. And Damien had his guardians, just like she had her guardians. So I feel like that's definitely a parameter. He had his people. If we're going to just the past, I feel like we should start with the past and work our way up. But the parameters were he was the Prince of Earth. There was a Romeo and Juliet type situation. She has her soldiers. He has his soldiers. They may or may not have had relationships, all of them. Spicy. And they were all probably forbidden. It was all forbidden. Forbidden. Yes.
I know one staple is the Moon Kingdom. They are an eternal race, essentially. They're supposed to be youthful. They're supposed to be essentially immortal. Not immortal to being killed, but immortal in the sense of aging, which is why you see that conflict, that kind of friction they have with Earth, because Earth is jealous of that.
Yeah.
And I feel that friction has to stay. That's the way Queen Serenity made it. That's but she made it that they're eternally youthful. And I think the other thing is we have princesses for all of the planets.
Yeah.
Except for the sun. We see nothing for the sun.
No love for the sun.
Yeah, you know what? I can't think of a single instance of the sun.
People make it in fan fiction. They make that the sun has something. But I feel that if the sun was going to have something, we would have seen it.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Like, we would have seen a kingdom. We would have seen blah, blah, blah. I think one of the other staples is there is no king of the moon. There's nothing.
Okay.
There's no king.
No. And what happened to him? We didn't need him, I guess.
She did the whole Virgin Mary thing.
I guess
with
so.
Serenity. Yeah.
Yeah, in the galaxy cauldron, right?
Yeah.
And that's science. That's how it's done, children.
Exactly.
That's how they make the babies. They put them in the rainbow crystals, and your stork is ridiculous.
Welcome to the Mooniverse.
Yeah, and we couldn't have a sun kingdom. That would just be too outlandish. Couldn't be.
Too much.
Too much.
That's too silly.
Okay, so now let's go into it. Let's talk. Do we want to talk about the one I sent everybody, or do you just want to go individually first?
For the future or the past?
I think we should start with the past.
Yeah, let's start with the past.
I feel like the past really should have its own show. I personally believe, as a fan in my own little personal fan fiction brain, just from the little bit that I've seen and what I'm going off of, I do think that his guardians all seem to date and enjoy her guardians. I do think they all got along. I think that they went to the drive-in. I think that they necked in their cars. I think that they all had a grand old time until Queen Beryl fell into the wrong crowd and was like, "What is happening?" And then turned them all against the Moon Kingdom. Should not be. You should not be here. You're not supposed to be dating. You're supposed to date me. Blah 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 blah. We're betrothed, etc. etc. And then through the space and time and the rebirth and all that, they've changed. Of course, they've grown. They're new people, and they fall and create in love with other people and create new relationships. But I would have loved to have seen their past evolve personally. I would have think that would have make a really exciting Riverdale for me.
Oh man, a Riverdale style Sailor Moon show. Can you imagine?
Yes. Where they're all actually teens, not just forever youthful, but actually teens making teen mistakes and going to prom. And I think that'd be cool.
God, Mama would wear a purple tux.
I would have loved to have seen the different events and holidays celebrated in the Moon Kingdom. I would have loved to have seen all of the drama between the kingdoms and be like, we don't get along, so we're in a fight. I would have loved to have seen why they were fighting. I would have loved to have gotten the backstory of Nehelania, of course, which was mentioned earlier. I feel like there's so much there as well. The Dark Moon Circus. I just feel like it's just skimmed over, all of it skimmed over. And yeah, I feel like beyond just fan fiction, I really think they should make that. I would enjoy that. Come on, Netflix, make that.
I was like, come on now, Go Sensei.
Yeah.
Say, please.
Yeah.
Well, even the stuff that's canon, let's take the second movie, for example. We see that Queen Serenity actually had to fight the Ice Queen. So, like, that would be an epic story. I'm sorry, how'd she get past the Outers? How is Queen Serenity actually, like, brawling? Like, I genuinely kind of see that.
Yeah. And what about the raw deal that Pluto got, having to watch the space and time so long, and then it was like, okay, just kidding, you don't have to do that anymore. You live your life. I feel like that whole thing is weird to me. I feel like she deserves some kind of reprieve because poor thing had gotten stuck out there alone for so long. And also the little implied relationship between Pluto and Mama.
Yeah.
Like there was a little something there, a little wink, nudge, nudge. How did that happen? But that might be getting back into the future instead of the past. But maybe they met in the past. I don't know. What's their relationship like?
Yeah.
I know that the time door isn't accessible on Earth. It's only accessible through the Moon Kingdom. That's the only way to get to it. Now, the peeping into the future, I think Serenity actually brings that gateway onto Earth so they have a better access to it. Because, like I said, there's no mention of the Moon Kingdom, which I feel that's why we do see a lot of fan fiction involving the past and the future, because there's just so much, just nothing. There's just empty space. We get little tidbits. I mean, I've written my own on it because I feel that, first of all, I don't think Queen Serenity was from the moon, because when I was reading the manga, I was like, it clearly is indicating that she came there. She's not from there. This is after the big war at the Galaxy Cauldron, essentially the Big Bang. That's what I'm referring to. That's my personal opinion. I think that's the Big Bang. And she ends up with the silver crystal, which is like the light to the darkness that is chaos. And I've written, because people write their OCs. I've written my own OC there because I don't feel that Usagi Serenity was being raised to actually take over.
Hmm.
There's no indication she wasn't really being raised to be a queen, especially with the fact that you're telling me that Queen Serenity didn't know she was going to Earth.
Yes.
Her power is what powers everything for that kingdom. She knows if someone is slipping the gate to go down to Earth. There's no way she doesn't know.
Gates.
There's no way she doesn't know.
She knew.
Silver Crystal is the one that's powering that. And I feel it was a political move because Earth was not hers. Earth had its own people, had its own rulers. She was not in charge.
Yeah.
But she was in charge of all the other planets, because you see all the princesses live on the moon, in the Moon Kingdom, serving her daughter.
Yeah.
At least the inner planets, the closer planets, because the outers are kind of
They
on
don't
their planets and they stay there.
they don't even get to go to the nice castle. No.
They
No.
were afterthoughts.
Exactly. They're the outer, the first line of defense, and then you have the inners and they're on the moon. I created my character. I created an older sister to Serenity because I was like, she's not training anyone to take over. Try to say, oh, she is. And I'm like, then where is Serenity's training to be queen? She was being raised to be a queen, but she was being raised to be as like a queen consort or something. She wasn't being raised to actually rule anything.
Okay. I can see that.
I don't feel that. I don't feel she was. Like I said, I've written my own. I did an older sister who's actually supposed to take over, and I have her actually be the actual starseed for the moon, because the silver crystal is not the starseed for the moon.
Yes.
Silver crystal was made by the Galaxy Cauldron.
Yes.
So she's actually the moon starseed, and she's actually going to be taking over, because who knows because that's what they were indicating, that Queen Serenity was eventually going to step down. I was like, if your daughter marries to the Earth, how is she supposed to run the moon? If you're gonna step down.
Yeah.
So I feel like a lot was left undone, and I try to, like I said in mine, I try to make it so it seems coherent even with the series, but I was like, you're not doing anything with her. And I feel like a lot of the kingdom stuff was left out. I'm like, what's going on Venus? What's going on Mercury? What's going on Mars? Like, taking their princesses. Are these princesses the only people? Because they don't talk about the people.
They don't talk about where they came from other than their home life. They don't talk about what their home life was like, and did they have siblings, and did they have parents, and where are their families and their friends and everybody from Mercury, everyone from Mars, nobody talks about it. Nobody talks about it.
Which, what a missed opportunity. Like, I want a wonderful intergalactic political epic saga. Like, you imagine?
I really can imagine. I think about that a lot, actually. Like, even if it was just one episode dedicated to each one, and what life was like in the before times. Barely got that for the whole series, but they even, for in America, they cut out the one episode of Mina and her backstory in Minako. Her backstory in London or whatever. They cut the whole thing out. And I feel like, what would it have been like if we could have seen a backstory of them in their former kingdoms before they came to live on the moon, before they came to just serve?
It would have been so good.
They do show them as children when Serenity is a baby.
Yes.
Like, these are children when Nehelenia pops up. And like I said, Nehelenia, I'm like, what happened there? They do like allude that what if Nehelenia is like Serenity, or like, I know there's a lot of fan fictions for that. Like, she's the darker half or a twin that was created by the galaxy cauldron, because you have light and you have dark. And that's what she's supposed to indicate. But I'm like, or was she one of the rulers on the moon? And when Queen Serenity got there, she was like, it's mine now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because let's be honest, like, I could just see her rolling up and just being like, I am the new queen.
I feel that way too. I'm back to what I said in the very beginning. We only see the one side of the story. Were they really the good guys for everyone? Or do we just get that version of them?
Yeah, and like, we went into it in the season finale of the show for season 1. It was literally called Queen Serenity is Evil, because I'm dramatic. And it was a really interesting deep dive. And Selene and everybody brought up great points. And we really have little, I think we maybe get 5 minutes of screen time in the original anime of the Moon Kingdom.
Yeah.
Because we get to see the ball where Serenity and Endymion meet, right?
Or he snuck to.
He snuck away too.
He wasn't supposed to be there.
Oh, that's right. It has been a hot minute. Let's see. I think
very sneaky. It was a bad boy Romeo Juliet move. And we were all here for it in the 90s. We were like, oh, it's an awakening. He wasn't supposed to be there.
You're like, I'm like, now I'm just like, go home.
Yeah. What are you doing? You messing everything up.
It's past curfew.
Yeah.
You have your SATs tomorrow. Get out of here.
When you start.
But I mean, we do see the hostility towards the moon with Earth, because Earth had its tensions from the very beginning, and it is mentioned.
Yeah.
So it brings up the interesting thing was the moon a takeover, and Queen Serenity is trying to impose herself, and the Earth was like, get fucked. No. Because you do see that tension. You see the fact that they're not supposed to talk to one another. They're like, the Earth is essentially not included in anything. Like, they're like almost outcasts compared to the rest of the solar system kingdoms, because they have opposed Queen Serenity.
We don't need you.
No, and just a reminder, viewers, like the glimpse that we just got in Eternal, if you guys have not seen the Eternal movie, I actually managed to track down, believe it or not, a small clippet of what Queen Serenity was like back in the day. Because she looks so nice and like angelic, I think people are very easy to forget. This woman can be terrifying.
I think that she thought she was doing good. I really do think she felt that she was doing the most good. Uh, but I I feel like it's a sad story for the Earth. It's a sad story for Nehelania. He came in imposing this, and in the fan fiction that we were all read before this, it was very much like, this is the way it is. You all have to do this because we said so. And I, I do feel bad for all of our fallen villains and the fallen soldiers of Endymion.
Because as much as we want to like idealize and like hope that everything was on the up and up, we really don't know. Because that was like we were seeing the hero's perspective of the story.
Mhm.
But yeah, I actually love. Okay, so let's talk. Fan fiction is more in the future, but I kind of think it because I think it mirrors the past. You know what I mean? Yes. Okay. So yes. Let's see. Is it Dominique Moore said? I always Queen Serenity did always seem so nice, but I totally think she was very political and savvy. That's what I think at her core. I think as adults, especially as we're watching the show again, I don't know about you guys to me, but I went from seeing her as like nice moon mama to, oh, you are a political powerhouse that I would never want to mess with in my entire existence.
She was a force. She was the force.
Another theory is, and I've seen it, and I've put it in my own fan fiction. It's like, why were the other planets so loyal to her? And I'm wondering is if as she was coming in, maybe there was war going on. Maybe there was war going on between the planets, or what happens if they were still asleep, but the Earth had woken up and they didn't. Oh, but like, what if the reason they're so loyal is because she's the one who made those kingdoms, who awakened the spirits that were in these planets? So they were like, okay, you can have our princesses that hold the powers of these planets because you're the one who awakened it with the silver crystal.
Yeah.
But Earth was already thriving. She didn't have to wake anything up. And I feel the reason that she couldn't get on Earth was because they had the golden crystal
Mm.
and they had Elysium.
Yeah.
So they
yeah.
had their own powers to have her go, maybe I shouldn't. But wait, here's my daughter.
I feel like she was very much trying to promote that whole relationship, and that might have been what drew Usagi to the planet in the first place. Was like, oh, they're meant for each other because they both have similar power that's radiating off of the whole planet. And I felt like she totally played into it. I feel like she knew the risks involved. She knew that the planet was not okay with their relationship and had either what the show would call jealousy or whatever. They just wanted to be their own planet. And I feel like she totally pushed that relationship, did not try to discourage it. And as a child in the 90s, I was like, that's the mom I want. And then as a grown woman, even though I don't have any kids, I'm like, no, girl, you need to go to bed. No, I talked with his mom and he's not interested.
It's
Okay.
just like the Little Mermaid when we thought 16 was grown up, and now we're like, bitch, sit down.
For a
He's
child.
several
Selene,
seats.
you need to go to bed to go to school the next morning.
There will be another ball. He is a grown ass man.
Exactly.
Okay. You know what? I hear there's some guy coming from one of the moons of Mars and he's lovely. You're going to love him. Okay.
He's fiery. But
Super.
let's talk about the fan fiction that I sent you guys. And because I'm ancient, I use fanfiction.net.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, oh. I was like, man, we are in the age of AO3.
No, me and like my friends are still on fanfiction.net and Tumblr.
I cannot. I've tried going back to fanfiction.net and I'm like, this is dog water. I can't.
I'm sorry. Oh,
It's so hard to find stuff for me.
okay, so the one I have up is one I asked both of these guys to read. So basically, the problem is most of the fan fictions I love about the Moon Kingdom are long, and they're all Haruka and Michiru, just FYI, because I am a space lesbian trash. So they're all Haruka and Michiru, but I loved this one because I thought it showed the political side of the new Crystal Tokyo. Basically, this story is called Sea Breeze, and it's by Yavapai, and it is rated fanfiction T. So it is all about the political intrigue. There's no spice to it. But what's interesting is that it's Queen Serenity has ascended. So she's mid ascension, and there is some political discourse, I guess you would say.
Discord.
Discord, thank you. I know I have such an aversion to Discord.
I do.
Selene can always call me out. But what's interesting is that all of the scouts are now in their roles, which do you guys want to kind of talk about those roles and how you felt each scout fit?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I felt like the person was okay, so it takes place in a future, but this writer chose to try to make everything make sense. And like I've said earlier, I feel like you can't try to make sense of the version that we're watching. You just have to kind of accept, in my opinion, that there's different lifetimes, there's different spans. What they did was they basically took the 90s version or the crystal version that you've watched, and then they continued it. So this was a continuation of what would happen if everything was super real, no magic, bare bones magic, if any, real.
They compared it
Real
to us.
bad
They
guys.
essentially took our political world that we have currently,
Correct.
and they kind of combined it with Sailor Moon, because that's the aspects. You see more of how we would have reacted, like in reality would have reacted to this thing. So I did find that interesting, but I also found it a little bit jarring when you compare it to how they kind of sprinkled in how the world is working for Sailor Moon. Go ahead, Erin.
Yeah, I know. I that completely agree with that. I did find that interesting as well. I kind of liked that idea because it has come up in many a heated conversation with other weebs at conventions. Like people will be like, "Yeah, but they could never take a bullet," and so that was kind of interesting to have them actually face bullets
Right.
and guns. And I do think that given the current political climate, there was a lot of accuracy there. I felt like that it was interesting but jarring, like you said, because I didn't think that that world really belonged to the Sailor characters that I've grown up loving. The Senshi that I knew weren't really going to get involved in that kind of world, maybe in a different timeline or different universe. This was just like this is how it worked, and this is how it continued, and this is how it will become Crystal Tokyo. It was very finite as to how this specific writer thought that it should streamline and work. So it is a little different from my interpretation of the show, but I do always appreciate another fan's theory of how it could work. And I also agree that it would be very difficult, especially given our political climate, to just tell people you're all going to be part of a purification process because that has worked out so well, telling everybody what they should do. And so I felt like it gained kind of an insight too to maybe the past and the whole Queen Serenity being like, "Hey, Earth, you're all going to be part of my purification process. Just look how happy these princesses are from their planet. Don't ask me where their parents are." I felt like it did have some continuation with that, and it kind of gave me some new insight to how I thought about the past. This was to happen. I did think that the characters were pretty accurate to how they would be, except for Queen Serenity. I feel like she would have instantly left if any one of her team members had been abducted. She would not wait. She would not hesitate. She would not show anyone else a video of it. She would be gone. She would leave the video running, her chair spinning, and a tumbleweed would be rolling through the office as their family was like, "Where'd she go?"
And then just loading in the background going,
"Ugh." Oh, I forgot. She would be
I forgot to explain what actually happens in the fan fiction. So, spoiler alerts, this is chapter 7 of the fan fiction Sea Breeze, which is titled Hostage. So basically, the scouts have their own particular roles, which I agree with. Even in Crystal Tokyo and in the Silver Millennium, I think the scouts would each take on roles that best suited them. And then Michiru's role is a diplomat. And as a diplomat, she went to America and there was political discord. And what happened is she got kidnapped and held hostage to try to hold off the purification. And we won't give away the ending because it's actually a great ending. But yeah, some of the characters are a little out of character, but you know what? That's what happened. It's fan fiction, so that does tend to happen every once in a while. But I agree with you guys. I do think that Usagi that we know, Queen Serenity that we grew up with, she would never just, I did, but the guilty pleasure in me, it kind of to see the outers working as a unit.
Yes. But I mean, like I said, I think that was my one thing. I was like, nah, she wouldn't have sat there. Cause I mean, look at what happened with the Black Moon Clan. When the Black Moon Clan is there. The scouts go out first. What does she do? You see her running out of the palace, and all of them are like, yeah. They're like, why? You're the queen. Stay inside. And she's like,
Yeah.
she's out there fighting as the queen. So I think that was one of my biggest nitpicks for it was Usagi would not have stayed. She would not have stayed behind. And it would have been an entire scout. I know they were like, things have to be covert and everything, but I guarantee you it wouldn't have made it to the meeting they had in there. Usagi would have been gone before that meeting even happened. Like
They wouldn't have called a meeting. It would have just been like, has anybody seen Usagi today? No. Is she running down the hallway with some toast in her mouth? No, then I have no idea where she is. And she'd be gone.
just everybody going shit.
Yeah. I do love okay, so here's what I did love about it. I did love that they put Venus in her role of leader because I feel like you get promised that a lot in the anime and you only get like little tidbits of when it actually gets to happen. And whenever it got to happen, I was always so excited. And I don't even know, she's not even like my favorite character or anything else. But whenever she got to actually assume that role, I was like, you go, girl, because that's you. And that's what you need to do. So I did appreciate that in the fan fiction that they gave her such a prominent role. I felt like everybody else was just a side character. And it did feel like a story that was written mostly just so that the Outer Scouts could have some more time to shine. Because frankly, they don't get enough time to shine. So all that was kind of nice to see. I do feel like when it comes to fan fiction with Michiru, especially with their relationship, Ernest and Neptune, whenever they're together, I feel like fan fiction likes to play up their flirtiness, their sexuality, how much they love it, how much they love to be together. And I feel like there's so much more than that. There's so much more than that. They are in a mature adult relationship. Sometimes it's just about help me with the taxes. But like I feel like fan fiction likes
Make
to
me a cup of coffee, thanks.
let's talk about this kid that we're raising that gets bigger and bigger every day. How about we talk about that? And it's like, when's your next art gallery with the violin? I don't know. What's on Netflix? Let's just feel like it's so much more than just the bedroom. And I almost feel like people write that like they're like that's the most important thing. And it is the most important thing is their bond. And their relationship is so much more than that. It has been a struggle. It has been a fight. It goes back centuries and multiple timelines. And I would really like to see them deep dive into it. And I did feel like this fan fiction hinted at that a lot in their missing. And then just when they would hint at it, I'm like, oh, good, they're going to actually show how much they love each other. And then it was like, but let's talk about sex.
Exactly.
You're not wrong.
I guess an interesting thing with that fan fiction, and like I said, it was the most jarring thing was they did bring in the political climate that is our world and how things would have reacted here. They bring in the European Union, they bring in the United States, who they would not have accepted that, especially of it being like, I'm sure if Serenity had been from the United States, it wouldn't have been as such an issue. But because she was from foreign soil, there was a big issue. And we don't, it kind of hinted at what happened with the Ice Age, but they didn't give us how the Ice Age happened, which I was like, well, what's your theory on that Ice Age that kind of happened? They did mention that not everyone got frozen.
Yes.
Not everybody was under. That's what I was reading. Like I was reading hints that some of these people were still awake and they were essentially surviving before like the whole melt happened. They didn't give us really a big timeline, which is the same thing in Sailor Moon. We don't actually know how long the Earth was frozen before she woke it up with the crystal. So I did find it interesting. I did find the guns thing interesting. That if they're up close with a gun, they're not going to stop that. They don't have the kind of shields to stop it. Now, if they're far away enough, they can put up their powers.
Which I thought was a cool use of their powers.
Yes. Them being like gunpoint with several AR, what are they? AR-15?
I don't know.
You have several of those pointed at close range. The scout's not getting away. They're going to stand there and be like, I will behave. So I did find that very interesting. I think that was one of the more interesting factors. So I was like, you're right. They wouldn't.
No.
Then they do deal with, there was like one episode where they dealt with people with guns. And I forget, it was in the earlier, it was like, we're talking like only the inners being around. And like these enemies had guns. I don't remember what episode it was. It was like almost like a mafia-esque type thing. And they got rid of them, but they were far enough away from them that they were like, mate, you didn't hit me. I'm like, oh, okay. But like I said, I think the most jarring thing is from the series, because we don't see as much political stuff. We see Ray's dad's a politician. We know that.
Yeah.
In Sailor Moon and the Scouts are very much accepted. There's like a moment where they kind of like, but they're very much accepted every time that they're saving the world, and there's no conflict against them.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see this conflict, but it also wasn't in the original world. So I think that was the most jarring thing, is that sudden conflict of the Scouts wanting to purify it, like Usagi, the Serenity wanted to purify everyone. In that world, in like a world that Naoko made, I don't think they had a problem.
Yeah.
I think she woke them up from essentially being dead, and they were like, fuck it, do whatever you want. They don't care. I don't feel that she found any resistance like this fan fiction created. I don't think she found that, because we did not see resistance in the series when she was healing people, when she was reviving them, when she was saving the thing. There was nothing but joy for what Sailor Moon did.
That's true. That was different, which is kind of why I asked you to read it, because I thought it was just a really interesting take of what if there is an added layer. Because as I feel like we've grown up, I feel like the show has also grown with us. Because especially with Crystal and Eternal and then Cosmos, I really feel like it's starting to almost like, it's always going to be a fantasy, a shoujo, that kind of thing. But I also feel like since this is just theories and just for fun, I like what would happen. I think it's very interesting.
So in the fan fiction, it almost seemed like the other nations didn't know about Sailor Moon. And I was like, for a fact, if that shit was going on, it would be all over the news. People would know about it. And you had Sailor V solving that stuff over in England.
Yeah.
So I'm just like,
that Sailor Moon is a menace. She is a menace to society. Her and Spider-Man should be
exactly.
I need photos now.
Yes.
Reveal that identity. Except they did reveal their identities. It's like,
yeah,
they know who they are.
Which J. Jonah Jameson would have none of it.
No.
He would have none.
But can we talk about that? Because I actually think that's a really interesting aspect of the story I hadn't thought of. The inners are pretty much named very much like, oh, yeah. But like, because they're everyday people, Haruka and Michiru are world famous. And that's an interesting layer to them, like, coming out as Sailor Scouts.
Was one of the reasons they were doing the political scene, especially Michiru, because she was so renowned as a violinist. So, but people were like, me, and I'm like Serenity, just do it, just purify them. Up to everybody. I did allude, and I did find it interesting. They did allude. She was like, people are gonna protest, and unfortunately, we already knew this. This is the Black Moon Clan, and you can kind of get you get a feel for her sorrow for it, because she knows that this is going to happen, and she's going to create this group of people. She's going to have to banish all these people because she already knew it was going to happen, because they got that glimpse into the future already.
Yeah.
And they can't stop it because it would ruin the past. And I always find that interesting. I'm like, you're telling me someone didn't fuck up? Find out about that. They're like, maybe we shouldn't have let Chibiusa near the crystal.
So you guys both have headcanons you want to talk about for Crystal Tokyo, right?
I've got my fan fiction for headcanons because, like I said, who's running the moon?
Who is running the moon?
There's no mention of it. They're all at Crystal Tokyo. And I'm just like, but also, like, where's the other scouts? Where's any mention of that? Like, you're telling me Chibiusa is 900 and something years old and she's never seen any other scouts on the planet?
Genuinely, I'm curious. I'm genuinely curious about that. Like, how?
What happened to the rest
900?
of the universe?
I feel like back to what I said earlier about there being other timelines, other like universes where they come and they visit our main timeline that we watch, because again, she's the most awesome. But I feel like if in my idea of it is this version that we've watched, it's not going to be the Crystal Tokyo that came from the future. I still think that she'll have a daughter. I think that she'll have a life and they'll grow up and they'll still be bad guys and they'll still have to fight them. But I don't think it's going to be like that. She's 965 and never saw us. I feel like that was a different universe, a different timeline where that kind of thing made sense. I feel like in this timeline, it doesn't make so much sense to have that young forever. I feel like that was a Neo Queen Serenity thing that may have carried over to a Dark Moon Kingdom thing. But I feel like in my little canon universe thing that doesn't really add up a whole lot. They're going to still keep doing their thing. They're going to still keep fighting for any other universes, timelines, planetary interruptions that they get. They're, hey, we're here for you, but we also are going to have our own life. I will have a child. She will live to see the 5th grade and not always be in 2nd and or young. And she may or may not have pink hair. I don't know. Hopefully she won't be as big a brat as the one that came to visit me.
I think it's interesting on that other timeline thing. It's kind of similar to the whole Dragon Ball Z. If you look at Dragon Ball Z, you see future Trunks. He is literally a different timeline of Dragon Ball Z. So did that happen with Chibiusa? Did she create a completely separate timeline by doing that? And like, we're not going to see the same thing happen now? And that Chibiusa can still visit because she likes that world.
Yeah. That child messed everything.
Everything.
She totally Doc Browned everything with her flux capacitor. She disrupted everything. Who knows the kind of mess up she has caused? Almost wasn't born in her own universe, let alone in the. If I was her, I would think twice. I'd be like, let's use a lot of protection, honey. Okay, double bagging. Because that child was a mess. And I feel like we would be a burden to society if we were to release that into the universe. We got to be careful. Like, just get a dog.
Get another cat. It's fine.
We'll get another cat.
Just something else I wanted to bring up real quick that is in another of my favorite Silver Millennium fan fictions by Dark Temptation. Fate and Destiny is the name of the title, and it is a spicy fic. I will let you guys know. It is at least, I would give it like 4 out of 5 jalapeno between Haruka and Michiru. And what's interesting is it's them that they meet. The description is her mother died, saving her only daughter from a nightmare that erupted on Neptune. Covered in her mother's blood, she arrives on Uranus, where she would remain at Haruka's side for more than 10 years with no memory. Things have remained silent until the nightmare begins and makes its presence unknown. Will Michiru remember her past, or will the dark take its hold on her? And what's interesting is Michiru arrives on the planet and they're both kids and they can't understand each other because they speak different languages. They speak Neptunian and Uranian, which I didn't even think about different languages.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very interesting. They must have all had like spyglass that could translate for them. We're way ahead of their time.
Yeah. And it's a thing. I would love to see like all of the cultures of all the different planets. Like, how cool would that be to see? Not just because we do get a little bit of idea of it with their attacks and with their what they wear and all that kind of stuff. But I want more. I want to know deeper.
Yes. On that note of the note, like, remember I said earlier, I would love it. Like, we've got just one episode for a scout of what their past was like on their planet, even if they were just a child. I feel like that would have been something. And then back to our future, because now we're talking like the future. I would have loved to have more backstory about the Dark Moon Kingdom folk and how they came to be Dark Moon Kingdom folk. I felt like they were all just glazed over as well, just pawns to get from part A to part B in the story. But yet they were such interesting pawns that left us really wanting to know more. Like, why were you so obsessed with the queen? Great. Granted, she's pretty freaking great. Okay, we get it. But still, like, you were super obsessed, dude. And then, but Emerald was so great. She had so many layers to her character. Zephyr, so many layers to his character. And just their whole story just glazed. And it was like, oh, yeah, our brother fell in with the wrong crowd. And this again, come on, give us a little bit more than he fell in with the wrong crowd. We can tell there's something there. So many well-developed villains and such little backstory.
And I mean, they got the nice treatment compared to what we saw with the poor Amazon Quartet by the 90s anime.
Yeah, they got dealt a really raw deal. Very little. And there might have been Chibiusa's next Sailor Soldiers. They definitely made that seem more than just a hint. And it's like, let's not even talk about them though. Or I don't know. I just felt like that whole thing. They got a really, really shit deal.
They just left it out of the 90s anime. And I'm like, hello? And manga? They're scouts? They're Chibiusa scouts? I'm like,
they're scouts.
All right. So what do you guys think? I know that they were teachers to Usagi back in the day, but what do you think that the scouts would be doing in the future?
I did like that writer's interpretation of how they would assist and how they would find their roles. Again, I feel like in the version that we were allowed to see, the lives that we were allowed to just be a part of, I feel like they might have some pretty interesting, but otherwise mundane jobs. If they were to be a part of some epic, glorious Crystal Tokyo thing where nobody ever ages and people get purified, whatever that is, sounds horrifying. If that was to happen, I do feel like they would take on very political roles and they would try to find different ways to help society. I did feel like that was pretty accurate to if that was the case. I feel like teachers is also definitely a good assumption. I feel like all of them would make excellent teachers.
how to live in the world that they have now, because it's indicated that a catastrophe happened.
Yes.
There is a huge enough catastrophe. They lose most of Earth's population. That's usually what's indicated. Something really big happens. It's an ice age. The world freezes over. We lose a lot of the people. A lot of people die during this.
Yes.
And then they get woken up. And I feel that, yes, they would have been teachers, because now, how many doctors did you lose? How many specialists did you lose that you're now going to have to reteach these people to be, while she does do that whole purification thing to make them essentially like the people were on the moon, they still get sick. There's no
Yeah.
indicator that they don't get sick, that they don't have like normal things happen. They're just immortal to time. That is it. They're only immortal to time, and they stay youthful. So I feel like, yes, they would have taken on certain roles for what they were going to college for.
Yeah.
I think Endymion also probably would have been with Mercury when it comes to like medical, because that's what he went to school for.
That would be so cool, honestly, to see.
So
Like,
I feel he would have done maybe that aspect of things, because that's a big thing. Like, they would have had to gather all the doctors again. They would have had to find them all, establish all the hospitals again. They would have had to teach people to be nurses again. Because you're
mhm.
telling me that they still had enough people? They didn't.
Hey guys, we are back with Build Your Own Moon Kingdom for Eternal Mooncast Season 2, Episode 5. I love this subject, as we said earlier. So let's get back into the theory then, I believe, for the night. So let's build your own Moon Kingdom. So who would like to go first?
Erin, do you want to go first, or?
Sure. I feel like I've been building my own moon kingdom all night, though. I feel like I
Yeah.
feel like this is what it started as. This is what it would be. I feel like it would be really cool to see a Bizarro Sailor Moon. I've just been really into that lately as I've been entering my villain era.
Oh,
I feel like it would be really cool to see what would have happened had the Dark Moon Kingdom got a new queen. Would have happened if Sailor Moon had taken over. Wise Man would have been out. He would have been out of there, done, gone. She's the queen now. I feel like she would have pulled her mom and taken over all of that position of power and
I've
then
actually
some.
cosplayed that.
Yeah, I started cosplaying that. And I feel like very happy and confident as like this villain, Sailor Moon. But of course, you still like, you can't be totally bad and be Sailor Moon. I feel like she would definitely turn that Dark Kingdom around. It would, I guess, still be a Dark Kingdom, but it would be better. It would still be good.
this one?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
So
Do
I love that.
I have mine? Hold on. I will find.
I love that staff.
thank you. My friends Zach and Marlette helped me make it, and they worked really hard on it. It was me, and we got the some of the pieces we just embellished, and they got the light to light super, super bright. You can't see it in the photos because it's outside and it's daytime, but the crystal lights super, super bright. So I really enjoyed doing it, and I feel like that would be a really cool take on Sailor Moon. I'd love to see a version of that. When we talked about fan fiction earlier, I have read a lot of really spicy fan fiction, and sometimes I'm not even looking for it. I swear I'm not looking for it, because if I want to look for it, I get mine. I'm not even looking for it, and then it always just goes that way. But I do love finding all the fan fiction I can about the Dark Moon Kingdom and Future Crystal Tokyo, and then it just always ends up getting super spicy. Don't hate it. I still keep reading it, and I enjoy it.
So looking some fan fiction I always like to talk about, if you're okay with me, Erin, like segueing for spicy, is actually someone who was on the show last season. There's a book coming out called The Queen and the Heiress, and it started out as a fan fiction that I highly recommend. On fanfiction.net, it's by Tempting Drug, and it's Blinded, the Queen and the Heiress. And the tagline is, she was blinded by her enemies and by the person she trusted most. Destiny opened her eyes and helped her regain her sight. And it's the new version of the story Blind, which you can also find on the author's page. And it is definitely, this one is 5 out of 5 jalapeno. If I could give it more, I would. So definitely proceed at your own discretion. And I highly recommend it if you prefer this kind of fic. and it is Haruka and Michiru based. What I think is really interesting is it is Haruka as a queen of Uranus, like of a planet, and we actually kind of to see some intergalactic politics and like how the rest of the mooniverse is with, and I really just love how the name of the author is Cece Gonzalez for the books that are published. And I find it so fascinating because something that we talked about a couple episodes ago was communicators. Did they have a way to actually like this, like video call each other?
Yeah, well, it was the future. So, again, Back to the Future, I have to keep referencing that. That taught us anything. They sure did. They did have ways to communicate. Like, I think that with building the future, there's so many things I would love to see. I would love to see how it actually ended up in the future, in that other timeline, the one that Chibiusa messed up. But we'll try not to hate her too much for it. Too late. I would love to see that future. I would love to see this timeline's future. I would love to see them aging a little bit. I know that they're not supposed to age, but I actually would like to see them age, especially now that, we're all like not spring chickens anymore. I would like to see how they handle things at our age. There's so many different challenges. There's, like Michelle Yeoh said at the Oscars, never past your prime. I feel like it would be interesting to see them age gracefully. And it would be interesting to see how they handle this world, this climate, what's happening now. What kind of villains would they still have? Would they still be facing the same type of mega superpowered villains? Would their powers still continue to grow as they aged? Because it did. They were always reinventing themselves. I would love to see what kind of superpower villain they had.
I did find a pic.
Oh, yes, please.
So I did what would happen if she actually followed Diamond and became like she leaves Endymion and goes for Diamond.
Ooh, spicy.
I had an ex-girlfriend who did Diamond very well, and I made an evil Queen Serenity to go with it.
But that's so cool. And okay, can we talk for a second about the size of the Silver Millennium? When I was researching, did you guys just realize how massive in scale it's supposed to be?
Wow.
Like,
Wow.
I was so confused how they have these long walkways, and then I actually found charts of what the Silver Millennium looked like. I went down
And,
a
like,
rabbit
it looked
hole.
like a true like medieval kind of kingdom, like with the separation in walls and stuff like that.
It looks huge.
When you see the inside, it's just gaping wide hallways that go on for forever and lots of columns. But there's no room for you here, Pluto. Go wait outside the time gate. Is crazy. Lots of balconies, occasionally flowers,
Lots of
occasionally ice
windows.
skating.
Imagine
So many
having
windows.
the window cleaner.
Yeah. Wouldn't want that job.
Yeah, because even here in future, look how big it is.
What's it going for on Zillow?
Pluto's turn.
Abandoned castle on the moon.
Let's see. Yeah.
Got 27 bathrooms.
Oh, and then this is an artist interpretation, and it's one of my favorite artists. So I had to I like plugging artists. This is KI Art on DeviantArt, and they do some amazing Moon Kingdom artwork that I highly recommend. And this is another of theirs. How cute. I want to do those outfits.
Yeah, they look like they're in trouble or something. Like they all got caught doing something bad. And they're all sitting on one side of the table. Yes, ma'am.
Except for
Sorry.
Mako.
Yeah,
So
sorry.
I wasn't in this one.
Y'all messed up.
And then this is another artist I really like interpretation of the Silver Millennium, which is Sugar Mints.
Gorgeous.
So what do you guys, okay, so we were getting into it before. So we have certain parameters. So what do you guys think about the other princesses? Where do they fit in your Silver Millennium, in your Moon Kingdom?
So in the future that's like I said before, I'd love to see them working their regular everyday jobs, still fighting as Sailor Scouts and aging gracefully, wondering when the hell their Crystal Tokyo is supposed to happen. Like they were promised a Crystal Tokyo, but where is it? And I I would like to see that. I feel like in my stage in life, I feel like that would be really interesting to see how they fit into today's society at the age they're at now. I feel like if we were going purely off of the Crystal Tokyo theory that nobody's ever aged and now it's like the 30th century and all of that, I do think that they would take on political roles. I would like to see them taking on roles to help keep the planet running smooth. I feel like they would be doing much, much more if they had eternal youth and could use that power for good, which they would be using it to make sure they are using all of their powers, all their tools in the toolbox to make sure the world is continuing to run smoothly. They wouldn't need to worry so much about bad guys or saving the planet because they're always going to be young. So they've got to do something with that kind of power. They've got to use that power to the fullest. Otherwise, they'd get bored.
Yeah, because I feel like they're all such talented people that really I'd love to see their talents explored more. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I feel like putting Michi as a diplomat makes sense, but damn, like then we lose this great violinist and artist. Like she's
Ooh,
got a room full of paintings. She can also play the violin like a mother. Is she just going to stop doing that now?
that's a good point. I hadn't thought of that. What would happen? Would it's the Sailor Moon conundrum. Would they have to give up their aspect of their lives that they wanted? Like how Maka wanted to open up, was it a bakery or a flower shop? How Michiru wanted to become he did become a violinist. How Go wanted to become a professional race car driver. I think Satsuna had science ambitions, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think she had medical type ambitions as well.
Yeah. And like Hotaru doesn't even get to the age where she can really have a desire for her.
Sad.
I think the only desire she has is protecting Chibiusa, which is why we see a lot of future fics where if Chibiusa actually gets to be her Sailor Scout self and have her scouts, you that Saturn is the leader of that scout group.
Which is so cool.
I'd like to see her grow up. I'd like to see a future where she decides to not just be a child for forever and actually takes accountability for all the things she messed up. But besides that, I feel like I would really like to see her become an adult and not just be an adult bad guy, although that was very nice and fun. But I'd like to see her become an adult.
We do get like a glimpse though, because Helios is actually visited by her adult self. Like he gets to meet the grown up Chibiusa. We get like that, but that's about it. When she calls out to him, she's like, "Hey, by the way, shit's about to fuck up. Thought you should know. Bye."
Okay, I have a kind of out here theory. It's my actual norm. What if they were leaving the Moon Kingdom? You know how we said, like, it's not done, it's not used at all? What if they were waiting for Chibiusa to grow up and then send her to the moon?
I like that theory. It's fun. I feel like, it's good to put that blame on her because she deserves it. She's done a lot of messed up things. And so, like, whole world is just waiting on you, girl, and you're still messing up. Makes
Well,
sense.
but I was just thinking it could be the reason why they didn't use the moon and the reason why that they were still waiting is because Chibiusa hadn't grown up, so they couldn't send her to start the Moon Kingdom.
Yeah, I think that's a really good theory. It's fun.
It could be, but like they don't do anything with it, and I'm like, they don't even like. She doesn't even mention that it's there, and I'm like, hello, it's there. It's still there, like just sitting up there. I don't know if like Serenity herself would send Chibiusa away. I don't see her with the mother that she is. She does like send her in the past to train, but I think that's because Chibiusa probably said something. She was probably like, "Hey, I want to go back into the past. Hate things. Can you write a letter to your past self so that it can be your idea, not my idea?"
Yeah,
I've done my own non-canon things, and I didn't like the fact that the Moon Kingdom got abandoned, and that's where I've written into the future with my fan fiction where my character actually is the one who runs that and runs it in conjunction with the Earth. And I've written the whole political system and stuff like that. So I find that they've left it very open for fanfic writers.
They really have. I feel like it would be interesting to also think about, like, you've got the Earth now. You clearly love the Earth. You fall in love with someone from the Earth and you're starting your Crystal Tokyo there or whatever. Maybe give it back to Nehelania.
I mean,
Let her rule
they
the moon.
mention in the anime that she gets sent back to like redo her life, and I'm like, then but where is she?
Yeah, but where is she?
Is she on the moon?
Where
Is she somewhere else entirely?
Is she locked up in someone's basement? We don't know.
She could be.
No, and I guess the question becomes, in our Moon Kingdom, in the Silver Millennium, how much of other planets and other systems do we really want to see? And like, or how much do we think that they're actually developed? Because like I was mentioning in Queen and the Heiress, it's like a fully developed planet with like festivals and culture and like all these amazing things. And I love that for each scout. Imagine if each scout could actually have an episode on like their planet, like you were saying. Like that would be so cool.
Yeah, special holidays, celebrations, and balls, and feasts, and banquets, and wars. Like all different kinds of things could be held on those planets, but they don't even bring it up.
And it kills me. I want to know.
Maybe it was too much. Maybe she hadn't thought that far. She was like, okay, he go. And then all of us are like, but what about the rest? And she was like, I gave you everything I had.
Yeah. Or she just made all her money and was like, you know what? That's it. I'm out. I don't need to work that hard anymore. You all figure it out. Y'all got ideas.
I feel like a lot of fandoms that happens, like, hey, what about this? And the author's like, make it up. Go write your fanfic.
And make it spicy.
Yes, please spice.
I do find it funny when actors or like authors and stuff read fan fiction for their stuff, and they're like, I like this. You're like, oh, sure you should be reading that. Like my question is like, does Naoko actually does she read any of the Japanese written fan fiction? Because I run into that all the time, and I'm like, damn it, do you have a translation? No, I can't trust Google Translate. It'll feel right awful.
Oh no.
I would love to know what she would think of everybody's fan theories, ideas, suggestions. I feel like as the only person who could say for sure, hey, yeah, that's a great idea. It would be so cool to just hear her give a lecture and be like, yeah, I read this and this is what I was thinking. Even that would be more satisfying than the nothing that we get. But yeah, I think it would be so cool to know what she actually thinks.
Okay, and then I got a question for you. Do you guys think that there would be king and queens, or at least if we're going with a matriarchal society, would you at least think that there are other queens on the other planets that the girls are either inheriting their power or that exist still and they're kind of there because you see them as children? Maybe the queen and the kings or whoever is back on the castle planet, and that's why we only see them as teenagers.
Did they make any mention of like Venus's family in Sailor V?
I
Or
just
it?
finished rereading it. No.
Okay. So I'm wondering if there isn't anything
Yeah. We don't get
that these
confirmation.
princesses essentially have been made to serve Queen Serenity, and their planets kind of have to follow whatever Queen Serenity says because she has their princesses. That's their only leader, and she's got these girls and she's raising them. So I'm wondering if you can put it as she runs these planets because she has their royalty and their royalty serve her.
Which I'm just like, I kind of think where you were going, Selene, with having a sister. Like, I feel like there has to be more than just one royal body. And if not, I'm just like, how in the world did Queen Serenity get all of them?
Also, Erin a spare. Always. He's the heir and the spare. And I've written it where Serenity is the spare. And that's why she gets you see a much more leisurely life. She was going to be princesses. Look how the other scouts are treated. They're treated as they've got to train, they've got to do their soldier stuff. They're meant to protect Serenity. They're meant to teach her. They're meant to do her schooling, her tutoring. But you got her running off in flower fields and shit.
And ice skating. She ice skates.
I mean, her and Jupiter, because they said Jupiter was
And
her
Jupiter ice
competition when it
skates.
came to ice skating.
They did that well. That was successful.
So with God,
No, I feel like somebody had mentioned earlier, you see them as little kids. I have a couple theories. And it's similar to what you were saying. I feel like there's either theory number one, none of the planets have anything. They don't have anything. Maybe she created all of them as well and created them first, and that they could watch over the new heir type of thing. Maybe they're all spares, and they were, and it's sad. I would love to have actually seen them have backgrounds and histories and families and whatnot, but maybe Serenity created all of them. And then there's also the theory that they did all exist and then they're all gone. And maybe Serenity just swooped in and like the savior that she is and took them all. And I think that it's interesting to know where they all came from.
You guys want to hear a dark theory?
God,
I just came up with this literally listening to Erin. What if, because I was like, it's really weird. Or like, what a coinky dink that all the scouts are the exact same age. Right? What if Queen Serenity came in and killed all of the Sailor Guardians for the planet and took their star seeds and had them reborn? And that's why they're all the same age.
could be. Because we don't know.
Nope.
That was why, with my theory, when she came to the moon, maybe she woke up, because they do make mentions that her going to the moon kind of disturbed something in the Milky Way, her being there, and that's what attracted chaos to Earth, because it was so populated. Like I forget which part of the manga it is, but they like vaguely mentioned that like her coming there, the silver crystal being in the Milky Way is what caused the problems.
Okay.
For the Milky Way. So who knows? Maybe she woke them up. She could have killed the former scouts and had the next person waiting in line, and she took them so that she could mold them to her own images that she needed for these scouts to keep these planets in line. I don't think the planets were completely empty. I think maybe Neptune and Uranus's might have been, because they didn't really show anything for their planets, and it mentioned that they were alone. But Venus, with the Sailor V manga, it kind of disrupts that theory, because clearly there was a kingdom on Venus.
Yeah.
But what if that was the only one? Because Venus is considered the sister planet to Earth. That's what we call Venus. Venus is the sister planet to Earth. They also kind of mention Mars having something, especially with Phobos and Deimos.
The crow planet.
No, that's her moons.
For her moons. So they were the guardians of that. And they served Princess Mars.
Okay.
So I think Mars may have had something. Like I said, I think maybe the inner planets had stuff, and then the outer planets didn't. And for Pluto, and because they mentioned Kronos as her father, what if baby Pluto was asleep on Pluto all by herself, and to make sure that power that Kronos had, that's why she put her at the gate. She woke her up. She's the savior of this child.
Yep.
Who has known nothing but either who knows what was going on with Kronos before I feel like maybe Serenity sealed him, because we don't see anything about him. We only have
# deadbeat dad.
We only have mentions that he is the father of Pluto. So we don't know what kind of life she was living under him. we don't know if, because Kronos is an old god within Greek mythology, like what other gods were around, especially with, you have the Ice Queen and stuff happening in the movies. You have Nehelenia. What if there were old gods on these planets that she ends up silencing and she wakes up these star seeds?
Interesting.
It's just a lot. And I've actually been writing all these notes down for my fan fiction, because I actually am debating whether or not I want to turn my fan fiction to an actual novel. Change things around a little bit, try and change names.
Do
But
it.
I've gotten so into like planetary theories on what's going on with the silver millennium that happened, and the fact that she's not from there. And she comes over, and I had, like I was saying earlier, the character I have put into it is the actual starseed for the moon.
That's so interesting.
And that, and I have in the story where Queen Serenity actually treats her as the next heir to the moon. So she's got a very strict upbringing, but the elder sister loves Serenity, lets her have that freedom. But there's a resentment from Queen Serenity about the eldest daughter, because the eldest daughter was forced on her by the moon, where Princess Serenity was something she did for herself when she went to the Galaxy Cauldron. So I put like a lot of political strife in there. I was like, she doesn't like the older daughter. She feels the older daughter was forced on her when she went to the moon and decided to build this kingdom. So the moon was like, okay, you get to have the person who can actually run the starseed of this planet, because you don't have it. You've got your own, whatever the fuck you made, that you're gonna have. And then I made that so that's why Princess Serenity has that. Because while she was born on the moon, she wasn't created on the moon. She was created in the Galaxy Cauldron. So she needs her own starseed.
Interesting.
So I have this whole thing on the planets, and I feel, like I said, for Pluto, something happened with Kronos, because he's not around. You don't see anything about that, and that's why Pluto gets put on the door.
Deadbeat dad.
Because we don't know what kind of powers Pluto could have developed if she had woken up and left her there.
He went out for cigarettes, never came back.
Milk in the Milky Way. That's what he went for.
Milk in the
He
Milky
went
Way.
from
Never came back.
never came back. What a douche.
Or what if he ate Pluto? Because Kronos was supposed to have eaten his children in Greek mythology.
Oh, I forgot that.
And then she kills Kronos, saves Pluto, and then she's like, okay, you get to sit on the time to eat, please. Eating's fine.
Just be thankful you weren't eaten,
Which I could see her doing.
You're so lucky to be alive. Now stay here forever by yourself. Don't worry, I'll send Mamo by so you guys can have some type of little tryst that will never come true. And that'll be great. It'll be great.
It'll be fine.
But they're still good together.
And then I, like I said, I see Princess Serenity as a political tool with Earth. Because what do you get the golden crystal? You get the person who holds the golden crystal to fall in love with the moon princess.
Yeah.
So that they can tie it together, and then guess what the moon has now? They now have Earth. They would have been able to have a better foothold and probably do a lot more damage and take over. What happens with Crystal Tokyo.
Yeah.
I feel that the Crystal Tokyo would have happened a lot sooner.
That is interesting. Would it?
It would have, because she would have been able to have the planet. She would have been able to brainwash them. Oh, look how useful the new queen is of Earth with her husband, and now he's useful because he's married her. Wouldn't you all like to be useful forever, just like the people of the moon?
She was playing a long game of a long game. Like, she was gonna get that planet. She was gonna be Thanos and get all the Infinity Stones. Like,
all the stones.
That's crazy whenever you think about it, because she seems somewhat like someone, if it was not the entire galaxy under her control, it was not going to be okay. She had to be in control.
Yeah.
Just because she represent light doesn't mean she wasn't dark herself.
And everybody has that ability to have the light and dark within them. And I feel like the show did a really good job of showing that, except for the fact that they only really gave you one side of the story. These are the good people and these are the bad people. But I feel like that's what makes it so well written, is because you have the ability to come up with so many ideas and inspiration over what could be, what was, why is it. That's a sign of a really good show. So I think that that's got to get props there.
I don't think Queen Serenity realized chaos had followed her.
Oh,
And that was the fuck up.
oh, you think she thought she got away
And
scot-free?
one of the things is, like, she's the light inside chaos, but you have to think she could be controlled chaos, where chaos is chaos. But she's controlled chaos, essentially. But she didn't know chaos was there. So I feel that shit would have gone differently if she had realized chaos had made it onto Earth. Because Earth had such a big population compared to everybody else. You had the generals who ran their own kingdoms, north, south, east, and west. That's what they represented of the
Mhm.
kingdoms of Earth. There was a lot of people on Earth compared to everywhere else that had already been purified by the queen. So there was no chaos on these other planets. And chaos slipped the fuck in when they weren't looking. And I feel that if she had known chaos had made it onto Earth, we would have had a different, I think the silver millennium would have continued because she would have nipped it in the bud before it happened. She would have stopped it before all of the people on Earth got infected by Talia and then came and invaded the moon.
Do you think she was just too cocky and she thought that she was too
Probably.
powerful?
Probably.
Maybe, or maybe just ignorant. And I don't mean that in like a mean way, but just blissfully ignorant of the dangers that could be unleashed.
Mhm.
Too busy thinking she was doing the most good.
Because she seems to have a pretty good, like, sense of what's coming to her in some instances, like the second movie with the Queen Kaguya coming at her, which I thought was interesting. So it's like, and she's smart enough to have the outers as her protection. And then the inners as backup to that, which I think is interesting.
You keep your favorites close.
I feel they didn't sense chaos though. Because
I
chaos
agree.
slipped in because there was already darkness growing in the hearts of the people of Earth who were already resenting these other Moon Kingdom in general. They were already resenting what was going on. I feel that chaos had a much easier time being able to slip past the defenses because there was already a darkness for it to latch onto. And if that darkness was already there, who's going to sense it?
Exactly.
And they were jealous.
It says that they were jealous. They were jealous of the eternal youth that the moon had, of the prosperity, power.
The water. There was something about water at some point too. Like it was like clear running water all the time. It seemed like
Their
a great
water
place.
was always pure. Their crops always blossomed. They never had famine. They never had disease.
Yeah.
And it created jealousy.
Oh, and I remembered somebody else from the Moon Kingdom I wanted to talk about because I admittedly do not know that much about them, but they were in the Eternal movie. Because what is their role? Do you guys happen to remember?
Don't they work for Elysium?
I was going to say, I believe they're temple guardians, right?
I think those are the temple guardians of Elysium.
Yes. Okay, so Elysian, we have to remember Elysian is still a thing in the Silver Millennium, as far as I'm aware. So that kind of brings up an interesting fact of, did Queen Serenity ever try to conquer Elysian?
That or she snuck these priestesses in so she could always keep an eye on it.
Because they look like her. They really look like her.
And she's so modest, making everything look like her.
Her daughter,
Very modest.
herself, her minions. And even how they're in all white.
Not narcissistic.
Nothing. No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, so I just, you know what? But that is an interesting aspect. She is a bit of a narcissist. She literally makes all of her minions, her daughter, like, they all look like her. To kind of scary degree in a way.
Yeah.
She had a vision.
She had a plan. Everyone's going to look like me. It's going to be great.
And then where do you guys sit on the
what
dates?
she
Are
thought.
these guys together?
I feel like they did some hanky-panky. They were bored.
Yeah. Yes. Back to what I said. That would have been the Riverdale that I would have been here for. I would have loved to see that. I feel like that that Endymion and Asandi had that plan. Hey, I got a friend. And it was one of those things where it was like, are you guys sneaking off to make out again in the woods and on Earth? And like, yeah, of course we are. But listen, he's got a friend. And I feel like they kept saying that over and over again as each scout found out. It was like, where are you going? I know you're sneaking off again. You're not supposed to go to Earth. It's dangerous. Yeah, but listen, he's got a friend. Every single time, every story ended with, he's got a friend. And they're like, oh, really? Okay, well, then I
Well,
guess I'll go.
This is also could have been Queen Serenity's plot also. Why not get the
Yes.
scouts with the generals? Because then you've got the generals of Earth, who are the second most powerful compared to the royal family. You've got them standing down because they've now fallen in love with these scouts.
Ooh, the long
Right.
game.
I totally agree. And I feel like she could have not just encouraged that, she probably could have worked some little magic
Yeah.
on
I
that
think
and been like, hey,
she
y'all.
turned that blind eye kind which I'm not watching. I'm watching.
It's just
I feel like it could be more than even just a blind eye. It could be a little bit of like, I made this happen. Bippity boppity boo, y'all like each other. And it probably wasn't hard because look at them. They're all gorge.
they are.
So I feel like, and you know what? Maybe the Moon Kingdom was lonely. They're all, who knows what happened to the rest of the people on their planet. You don't see a lot of male influence on the planet, or even other people. Like, they're not going to make out with their friends all the time, although this do. I feel like it was one of those things where it was like, hey, well, if you're getting some, I want to get some. And we're teenagers. Let's do it. It's naughty. It's delicious.
Now, I heard an interesting headcanon, which literally it was from Sailor Moon headcanons on Tumblr, who I am a ridiculously big fan of, and where I learned a lot of fun headcanons and theories that Sailor Mars is actually Ace, and that her and I are just really good friends.
Could be.
I can see it. Somehow I can see it.
That or for this whole thing, them getting with the generals, with the fact you've got the ships between Jupiter and Mercury and Mars and Venus, maybe the queen saw them hooking up and was like, nope, I need you guys to actually do something. I need you to tie these gentlemen down.
Yeah, because otherwise
so
they
that
might.
we got even more wiggle room. Because
Yeah.
the generals were against it. They were like, hey, Endymion, can you not?
Yeah. And then I think he was like, but listen, she's got a friend. And I feel like they knew what they were doing.
you'd like her.
Listen, she's got a lot of really cute friends and they're all badass bitches. And you guys are going to love them.
But what I think is interesting as well is that we do get at least a bit of play of interaction between the two of them in or like the scout and the generals in Crystal. But it's just a moment and it's just a glance, and I feel like they teased us.
Yeah. I feel like this artwork has been a tease. Like anytime I see artwork like this is such a tease. I really would have liked that story. 100% would have liked that story. What made them fall in love? What made them fall out of love? Was it forced? Was it natural? How did it happen? And did it happen as a political move? Was Queen Beryl more driven by the fact that all these generals suddenly abandoned everything that they were supposed to be protecting to date these women? Is that what happened?
And that brings up a good point. This could bring him back one of your theories of, oh no, Queen Serenity sees that the scouts are starting to pair off with each other. What happens then? Because then they're not going to want to protect each Moon Princess as much as they're going to want to protect their lover. You know what I mean?
Possibly. They find out that Beryl brings in that evil through her into the palace, and she infects the generals while Endymion is not on Earth.
Okay.
So I feel that she did it at a perfect time. I feel that maybe Endymion's influence would have maybe stopped it because he had the golden crystal.
Yeah. And how amazing and delightful would that story have been when all of them who had been hurt turn up to the ball, and all the women there, all the Sailor Sentry are like, "Hey guys, let's dance," and they're like, "No, we hate you now." Like, how amazing would that turnabout have been to watch as an audience member and just be like, "Oh, no, scandal! How dare they? They loved each other. I thought this was real." That would have been amazing. And then Endymion like, "Oh my god, I left for 5 minutes and now everyone hates you."
Because he was at the ball when shit goes down and the essentially this darkness comes in. Now he does, I believe, go back to Earth for a moment
He
to
does.
try and stop it. He's trying to calm it down, but already too late. Like he can't.
And that's where his daughter gets it from.
Yep.
And so he goes back to the moon because he's like, all I can do is help defend you guys against what the fuck's going on.
Yeah.
I threw a rose in their general direction. It did nothing. I don't know I'm at a loss.
Because he doesn't know to use his silver crystal yet, or his golden crystal.
I haven't. I've never used it. It's like me with technology. There's a lot of stuff there that's just untapped. I could use it, but I don't. And he's like, I was too busy throwing roses in the general direction. It didn't land, but I tried.
Wrong.
And I think it was also probably the shock of like these people he trusted are suddenly gone. Like he didn't care anymore.
Yeah.
It was like they died. To him, and it was probably, all joking aside, it would have been great if they explored that more, because it was like a really bad breakup. Whenever you lose a friendship, it's like somebody dies and they were no longer themselves. So yeah, while we would have loved the delicious trauma of all the girls being like, "Hey, we put on our best party dress," it was like, "No, I don't love you anymore." No. But like to him, he lost his most trusted advisors. He lost his best friend. He lost them so hard that in his next life, he still doesn't regain them.
Because I honestly think they were dead. I feel that
maybe
that they were just husks at that point. Like they were not, that Metalia killed them because maybe they resisted, and then she reanimated the bodies.
And how sad is that, though, that when the Sailor Sentry all were reborn, because in the 90s version or whatever, she's like, I sent them all back to Earth and everybody was going to get reborn there. And that's science. But they don't ever regain their memories of what it was like serving him. At least the girls do. And even the cat member is like, oh, yeah, I remember you were important. But they never remember their friendship with him, and he never remembers his friendship with them.
I think the 90s anime kind of robbed us of that. You get a glimpse after they die in the manga, when he's able to get a hold of the stones. Yeah. The stones have the men that they were. That's what he gets, but they're dead. That's all he has is those stones and the souls of his original generals, because that's where they are. That's all that's left. And I think that's bullshit. I'm like, give them bodies.
Yeah. It's sad. It's robbery.
And then is there any other character that you want to talk about their treatment or how you think they would end up in the Silver Millennium or the future?
I feel like there's a lot. I'm trying to tone it down. I'll try to just bring it down to just a couple. But I feel like Saphir also got a really raw deal. He was such a good guy. I would love seeing Saphir pulling off in the Silver Millennium because I feel like he deserved to be there. I feel like he was never bad. While a lot of his partners were really getting swayed and pulled left and right, he was like, what are we doing? Honestly, what are we doing? I don't get it.
And he was one of the few. And for those who are trying to remember, it is Saphir from Sailor Moon R. It is Prince Diamond's brother, or
His
and
younger brother.
younger brother. There we go. I was like, I remember R. I need to rewatch it.
Yeah, I would love to see Prince and Emerald and all of them really get another chance. Avery, Prisma, Birdie. I would love for them to get another chance. I feel like they all kind of the raw deal where they got that weird "you're not pure, so you don't belong" treatment, where it's like, so you must be a bad guy, and then they get sent away, and now they become bad guys because they become resentful. I feel like they never really had a chance to be good. I don't know if it's that teacher in me or whatever, if it feels bad for the kids that are naughty, I was like, yeah, they never had a chance to be good. They were swayed really easily and they regretted their decisions and they were under the influence of somebody terrible and they never really had the chance to prove themselves. I think it would be really cool to see them in Crystal Tokyo living their lives, becoming the good people, but still have that darkness within them. I would love to see jealousy and tension with Demand as he still tries to live out his life, still obsessed with the princess, but still trying to not be a bad guy. I feel like that would be cool.
That would be really cool. Because do we see the R villains at all after the season wraps up? Do we ever see them again?
I don't think we see the sisters again.
Because they're human now, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
In the 90s anime, yes, the sisters are human again.
But
I don't recall if they come again.
trying to remember. But you know what? I really don't feel like we see them again.
We don't.
They're
I don't
just
think we
trying to
do.
live
I don't,
normal lives.
because they're just living. They get to live normal lives.
Which
But
is,
they don't get to be part of Crystal Tokyo or that glamorous future.
but you know what? At least they're together and like they seem to be like hopeful for the future. Okay, so we have time for like one more topic.
My biggest thing for the future, and has always bothered me in the manga, is Sailor Cosmos.
Oh, okay, let's hear it.
I actually don't think she's Sailor Moon, even though she says she is. I'm like, she was queen, and then suddenly she becomes a scout again.
True.
I'm like, no. And like I've done for my fan fiction, I actually made her elder sister be Cosmos because it made more sense that someone else was Cosmos.
Yeah.
Hold on.
No, I agree 100%. I feel like Cosmos is not Sailor Moon. She's in that, and like you have your fan fiction where she was a sister. In my mind, that was a different timeline. She was a
Mhm.
different soldier. She was a different Senshi. She was not Sailor Moon. She never was. So I agree with you 110%. Like, I feel like call it whatever you like. It was the sister. It was the original. It was supposed to be, but it's not Sailor Moon.
I don't feel it is because I'm just like, because when they're in the manga, it's like, no, I'm you. And I was like, but that makes no sense because she becomes Neo Queen Serenity. And this is the life she does because she gives up her Senshi life. And that is what is indicated, that she gives up being a Senshi.
Mhm.
And she's going to be Neo Queen Serenity. So I feel that Cosmos was very wonky with how she was given to us and then saying she's Sailor Moon. And I was like, how? When?
Now,
And that she comes from the future where everything's been destroyed and she's scared. And I was like, 'cause that doesn't sound like Usagi to me. Usagi would not have given up the way Cosmos says she does, and that she's gonna go back to her future and she's gonna fight. And I was like,
Yeah. Hashtag not my Sailor Moon.
yeah, I was like, it didn't mesh well.
No.
Where I was like, it's almost like Naoko was like, I have this really cool design of how I want Sailor Moon to look. And then this is where she went. And also, I was like, her odongos are different.
Mhm.
And that's another reason I was like, because like for my character, I gave her the heart odongos.
Oh,
Because Usagi, no matter what she's in, her odongos never change. They never change shape. They always stay the same. No matter what life she's in, no matter what life we've seen, her odongos never change.
Yeah.
It is always just the two meatballs sitting on her head, and that's it. So I also had that problem with Cosmos where I was like, but why would she suddenly change her hair?
And then I got another kind of question for you then on Cosmos. Where do we see Sailor Cosmos in that the new movie is literally named Cosmos, which I think is interesting. It's not
Mhm.
named Stars, which is what I expected. I expected that they were going to do Sailor Moon Stars, the movie, the way that they had named the previous animation series. But instead, they're naming it Cosmos, which makes me think that there's something big that's about to happen. We're about to go off the rails from the manga, I feel like.
Possibly, maybe they called it Cosmos to get us interested because Sailor Cosmos is going to show up. Because Sailor Cosmos doesn't have that big of a role. She is there for like a moment in there, and that's about it. We don't get too much on her. She's like, "No, I'm you from the future," and I was like, "No, that makes no sense in this."
Yeah. That's why I go back to the different timelines. You from the
Mhm.
future, but I'm a different you. I'm from a different future. I'm from a different timeline. I'm not really you. I'm the multiverse you. I really feel like that's what they're trying to get at because there's no way it couldn't be.
Mhm. But the manga indicates that it's all linear, and I think that's kind of what trips us up because we're like, that doesn't feel linear. Like you don't feel linear, but you're trying to say that you are.
Yeah.
And I think I enjoy the fact that like you said, that there's different timelines. It's just like I was pointing out Dragon Ball Z, Future Trunks has a completely different timeline and he creates the other one, the past one, because he goes into the past, but he can't change the future he's already made.
And I haven't read the manga in a very long time. I actually recently picked up a random Stars very recently just because I'm renovating and came across it. I was like, oh my gosh, yes. Oh, and I was looking through it. And while I do feel like as a child when I read it, I felt like it was linear. I felt
Mhm.
like it was very much cut and dry. This is how it's supposed to be. As an adult, just glimpsing at it and rereading it, I felt like a very different side. I felt like it was more like the Stars had their own agenda. This was their own universe. This was their own plans. And they just, like everything else, got swept in. And here we are. And they're led to believe too, like just we are the fans watching. It's like, no, this is you. This is your future. Here we are. But it's just like they say in almost every cartoon, in almost every movie, it's like, oh, we say this is your future, but it's really not your future. Your future is still yet to be unwritten. It's not so cut and dry. But when you're a teenager and somebody comes to you that looks a lot like you and is like, yeah, I'm here. I'm you from your future. You believe it and you fight for it. And that's what you're going to do. But you stop and you think about it and it's like, no, I still have a lot of control over my future. This isn't what it has to be.
I agree. Can you guys even see my cat?
No.
No, it's a void.
Oh, I see something there.
Yeah, there's like, you can see his ear and his face. There he is. We always like to show our pets on here. Any last thoughts before we wrap up for the evening and we do more about ourselves because we have like about 5 minutes.
I mean, I gave a lot of my stuff that I've put into my fan fiction, and that's just from me piecing together theory that we didn't get.
Right.
And I'm like, hey, let me make this make it sense as a story because I am adding a character. And I hate adding characters and then they don't make sense. I hate writing Mary Sue's. I'm very careful not to. So I've delved a lot into the Moon Kingdom itself and like anything I can find. Uh, I need to reread the manga. Uh, I've only just started rereading it, but like to see if I get anything else so that I can continue to do this because we don't get anything.
No.
And I think that I feel that is a huge thing Naoko could work on. She's got something. You left so much open to work with for yourself if you want to continue doing stuff with Sailor Moon, especially with it. I'm like, are we going to hit the 50th anniversary before you give us anything? Like, come on, please don't do that.
I'll be getting my walker out. It'll be all decked out.
I will say,
Stamped out.
Oh
I'll be
my
with
God.
you.
It could be little. It could be her staffs as like the us legs for the walker.
Exactly.
That is my plan. That is my plan when
Mhm.
I age gracefully, hopefully. I'm going to be using all of her staffs as my own walking stick. But yeah, I feel like, just like you said, as a child, when I read the manga, I thought I was an adult. I thought I could handle it, but there was a lot I couldn't. There were many awakenings, but most of them sexual awakenings. It was great. It was great. But besides that, there was a lot of wanting more. There was, I felt like I was missing pages. Back in the 90s, when you got it, that could very well have happened. It was not, we were no strangers to the censorship. So and a lot of times we did have things that were raw and in Japanese first, like no subtitles, no translation. So I remember getting my first English translations and feeling like, am I missing pages? Did I miss a whole book? Like, where is this? There was so much of that. I felt like the filler in the cartoons were some of my favorite episodes because in the filler, you got so much of the other senshi, the other scouts, and then, like in the deep translation, you felt like you got more of them. And I really liked that because that's what I was lacking from the books. As an adult, when you rewatch it, it is a very different show. Some of it holds up so gracefully and some of it does not translate as well as it used to. And then some things make you question even more. And I remember as a child watching it and being like, why? As an adult, I watch it. Oh, that's why. But as an adult, there's so many more new. Why? So it's good that it's like that because the show should keep you making the conversation. What is this and why? And it should inspire you. So I feel like that's important to keep going with that thought.
But also, Naoko Sensei, please give us more.
Please.
Absolutely. She has so much material to work with
So
that
much.
she never gave us.
Nope.
And I'm just like, are we going to get any more? Or is this it? Are these Cosmos movie, like this Cosmos movie is going to be it? What are you guys going to do to continue the franchise? You guys are making so much fucking money on the franchise.
So much.
Yeah.
What are you going to do once the Cosmos movie is done?
Good
And
question.
Keep people back. We'll keep people coming back and spending their money on it. You've got to Crystal, like them announcing Crystal made us spend money.
to circle back to who would be in the silver crystal millennia, whatever, the new world, whatever. Yeah. I would love to see that even if the Starlights had their own timeline, they have their own universe and they just kind of messed up. I would love to see them still be able to have the power to visit. Just like we talked about Chibiusa having the power to visit whenever she wanted, because that's what she does. I think they should have that power too. I think anybody who has transcended from another timeline, universe, whatever, and they've come, they should have the ability to come and visit whenever they want. I would love to see them in the new Tokyo.
That would be really cool. Be rad.
There's some fan art of like what that their planet looks like, and there's fan fictions of Seiya longing to go back to Earth and see them and see what's going on and what happened over there. And like I said, there's just so much that she left on the table.
So much.
And is she just going to leave it on the table? I know she's helping her husband finish up Hunter x Hunter or something else that he's doing. So she keeps helping with that. And she does give us some artwork. She's done it for like the museum. She's done it for the Eternal covers. She's the one who did those. But that's all we've gotten. We haven't gotten anything else from her. And I'm just like, is Toei going to look at her and go, you have to make something else. We have to give them something.
I wonder.
Right.
To continue this.
And wouldn't it be
Because
lovely
we
to
don't
see
know.
Seiya and Endymion have some conflicts between
Mhm.
themselves too? Would be lovely.
And Taka, just for my enjoyment too, please.
Are we gonna see something in the next after Cosmos is over? Are we gonna see something next year? Because I'm like, what are you guys going to do? You need to redo Crystal, to be honest.
Yes.
If you wanted to follow the manga, you should have followed the manga.
Yeah.
And they didn't. They went over here, and I was just like, I'm like, if Demon Slayer can follow its manga and do perfectly fine, so can you. Because that's what's happening. All these animes that are coming out, they're following their mangas exactly. Like all the stuff I'm now there is one where I did watch recently. It's one of the isekai things. I'm not going to say its name because it's so fucking long. That I'm reading the manga and they actually like cut something out of the manga because it was like they didn't need it for the story. And like I'm fine with that. But Crystal fucked up.
Crystal, yeah, look at it. Please see our host episodes when they come out as to to Celine's beautiful rant on Crystal. Because we do talk about the positives and the negatives. And with that, is everybody pretty well good? Because then we can go into talking about ourselves.
Yeah.
All right. So now to wrap up, first, I will thank our guest for joining us. So, Erin, if you would like to plug yourself a little bit, talk about yourself, what you do, who you are.
Well, again, if you're just joining us, I'm Erin, also known as Peach Bunny Princess on TikTok. I've been doing a lot of fun TikToks there. I have a lot more fun stuff coming up in the works, but you're going to have to check out the TikToks to figure it out. There's a lot of stuff going on, transitioning right now. So I'm super excited to see where it leads. And hopefully you guys will get to join me on an adventure in mediocrity as I navigate through TikTok with very poor tech skills. It should be fun.
You are
I also
hilarious.
cosplay. I cosplay, and that's fun, right?
Yeah.
Right. I direct, I do some comedy stuff, I do some voiceover stuff. And yeah, I think that if you enjoy Sailor Moon and all things Sailor Moon, then you should definitely check out my pages. I'm also on the Instagrams as Peach Bunny Princess. Oh, there's some pictures of me.
Yeah, to kind of. Oh, look how cool that is. So, will you explain what? Because I know it can be a little hard to see, so I'll try to zoom in how neat this cosplay is.
Oh, yay! So I'm super proud of that one. I did that on my own, and I'm very, very proud of it. It is. I wish I had the doll with me. I have a little crocheted Sailor Moon doll, and I've always thought it was really inspiring. I wanted to make a whole outfit that was knit and crocheted. So that outfit is made out of yarn. There is a corset underneath it to keep its shape, and then the whole outfit has been knitted or crocheted together. I made the wig myself, which is the one that took a nosedive because it desperately wants an attention. It's attention for her. But I'm super proud of her. And it took me a very long time. I have had a couple of people ask me if I would make the whole rest of the scouts, but that one took so long. Longest part was actually the red bows. The bow in the back and the bow in the front were probably the thing that took the absolute longest. Wig was a lot of trial and error, but it was very fun to make, and I super enjoyed it. Of all the costumes I've made, that one is probably my favorite, and I feel like it's very unique. It was something I hadn't seen before. And that is something that I usually do try to strive for with my cosplay, is to make something that people haven't seen 100 times. Except for that one, that was something bought. Everything else is like, I try to take what I have and make something new. I do get inspired by a lot of art, which is where the steampunk Sailor Moon came from. And I definitely do stick true to the classics and will do whatever actual canon characters there are, but I do like to have fun with it and try to make my own unique twist. I like scary, spooky stuff. So if I can try to find a way to make it just a little bit creepy or make people feel a little uneasy when they look at it, that always makes me happy. And that was my niece playing Chibiusa, which is perfect because she makes the best Chibiusa ever.
I was going to say, I think there's more pictures. And is that the doll that you were talking about?
Yes, that's her. So I made the doll. I made that whole outfit based on that doll.
adorable. And then I would double check and I
Very
got all
well
your pictures. There we go. Oh, it's your, is it a yukata or a kimono?
Yes.
Those are the
Yes.
official
And that's
ones.
actually the Sailor Moon one. I did not make that. That was definitely bought. Mine is definitely the licensed Sailor Moon one. She has the one with bunnies all over it, but you
So-
can't see it in the pictures. But hers has little rabbits all over it. And she is, if you knew her and you knew our relationship, she is definitely like the best Chibiusa ever.
I love that. No,
And I did work on her wig. I made her wig and I did my wigs.
That's so cool. Definitely thank you for sending us all these great cosplay pics to show, and thank you for being a guest. You were absolutely phenomenal.
Hey, thank you for having me. This was so much fun. I enjoyed it. I hope I can come back again sometime.
Of course.
Definitely. We want you back. You know how much we love you. All right. And then there is Erin's socials on the screen if you would like. And then otherwise, I'm going to let my wonderful co-host go ahead. All right. Go ahead. Talk about yourself, Selene.
I feel like I talk about myself every episode when I'm on here. I'm like, oh, I'm exposing way too much about myself.
Expose yourself, girl.
Right there.
Really?
Behind you.
Ma'am, how much is your house worth with that collection in there? And I'm like, that is none of your damn business, first of all.
Won't talk about it.
You guys can find me here on Twitch. I am Celine_Laufason. You can also find me on TikTok on the same name. Hold on. We gotta check. I have to make sure. I'm pretty sure that's my name. Yes. So same name on TikTok. I do TikToks. I need to start doing cosplay ones, but I haven't been in my cosplays in a while because life is so busy. If you guys want to follow my Instagram, my cosplay name is actually Catarata. I do have, when I was doing cosplay much more, I have been taking a hiatus from cosplay just because life has happened. And it makes me very sad because I actually miss getting into Princess Serenity. I miss cosplaying as Queen Nehelenia. If you check out Catarata either on Instagram or Facebook, you can actually see my photos. You can see some of the, I guess, takes I've done. Like you can see my evil Neo Queen Serenity, or you can see me dressed up as just a really cute Usagi outfit that I did one year for MetroCon. So yeah, that's it for me.
All right. And then for me, what I'm going to do is you can find me at, let's see, I can always do this. You can find me on my personal Instagram at MEW21_cosplay. And other than that, I think that's about all I got. Oh, there's Luna.
Yeah, there's a Luna. Luna.
Hey. All right, guys. So thank you, Luna, for coming to say goodnight to everybody with us. Say goodnight.
I'm doing fast.
All right, guys. I'm Michi. This is our special guest, Erin, and my beautiful co-host, Selene. Thank you guys for joining Eternal Mooncast Season 2, Episode 5, Build Your Own Moon Kingdom. Thank you guys for joining us.